You know, it was like a telephone pole that had on it swimming down the lake.
There are plesiosaur in Loch Ness.
One of the most frequent questions I get asked out here in Loch Ness is obviously the Loch Ness Monster, and do I personally believe in the monster? I'm not such a fan of a dinosaur swimming around here in Loch Ness. I'm not really a plesiosaur kind of guy, but for me, definitely a mystery. There's been over 1,000 recorded sightings of monsters or creatures being seen in Loch Ness. And for over 1,000 people to report seeing something, they genuinely believe. All the people I've ever spoken to genuinely believe in what they have seen as an actual living creature.
Dinosaurs. Once, they were the rulers of this planet, magnificent beings that dominated the skies with their wings and the land with their claws. Their massive strides dictated the rhythm of the earth, and everything in their shadow bore witness to their power. But one day, they quietly vanished from the stage of history. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say that we thought they disappeared. Because even now, some believe that a few of those ancient dinosaurs from millions of years ago might still be alive, hidden in the depths of Loch Ness. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster burst into modern consciousness with newspaper reports of sightings in 1933. But putting aside all the legends for a moment, what does science actually say? The most recent research in 2025 reveals unidentified objects picked up by sonar deep within Loch Ness. Are you curious about what the scientist, who claimed to have seen Nessie with his own eyes and was fired for trying to prove her existence, had to say? Some scientists still believe Nessie could be real. Others claim it's impossible, yet they offer no definitive proof. So, what did the DNA analyses reveal? And what about nearly a century of eyewitness accounts? Through the lens of science, what could Nessie truly be? This video examines every major scientific investigation from 1933 to the present day. And perhaps the answer is far more unexpected than you think. Although the legend gained early popularity, scientists approached the available evidence with skepticism. For example, in the summer of 1934, Scottish businessman Sir Edward Mountain stationed 20 observers around Loch Ness for a comprehensive 5-week investigation. None of the 21 photos taken during the study were considered convincing. These early evaluations led researchers to believe that reports of the monster could likely be explained by known animals or hoaxes. Zoologists who examined one film frame from that era concluded that the object thought to be Nessie was most likely a seal. The scientist who was fired for claiming he saw Nessie.
The scientific community knows that the Loch Ness Monster is real, but they never intended for this truth to be made public. When I exposed it, they made an example of me to silence and scare others.
By the late 1950s and 1960s, the search for Nessie became more systematic, but not all scientists were content with observing from a distance. One man, Dr. Dennis Tucker, a respected zoologist at London's Natural History Museum, claimed he had seen the creature with his own eyes. Dr. Dennis Tucker was one of the rising stars among the distinguished zoologists of the Natural History Museum 56 years ago. For about a decade, he was among the young researchers and was a fish expert praised by his colleagues, until he claimed to have seen the Loch Ness Monster. As a result, he was dismissed from his job. After serving as a pilot in World War II, Dr. Tucker began his academic career and started working as a scientific officer in the zoology department of the Natural History Museum in 1949. He was quickly promoted to senior rank in 1951 and then to principal scientific officer in 1957. A favorite of senior academics, his bosses once said, "Most people who know him would agree that in intelligence he is to be classed with a few of our most brilliant colleagues." However, everything changed after a trip to Scotland in 1959, when he claimed to have seen an unnamed animal emerge from the surface of Loch Ness. In a letter to New Scientist magazine, he wrote that he believed the so-called monster, which had been the subject of thousands of alleged sightings up to that time, must be a plesiosaur, a reptile thought to have gone extinct 70 million years ago. Announcing his findings to the public, the researcher said, "I am quite pleased that we have in Loch Ness one of the most exciting and important findings of modern British zoology." He added, "As a professional marine zoologist, I saw a large hump in 1959. It belonged to a creature that cannot be explained by known species." Although his announcement sparked public excitement and ignited 3 decades of academic research on the lake, his superiors at the museum were not impressed. According to documents reviewed by The Independent, Dr. Tucker was questioned whether his new interest in Nessie was a suitable topic for a principal scientific officer. At the age of 39, Dr. Tucker's career abruptly ended. In other words, Dennis Tucker lost his job at the Natural History Museum because he believed in the Loch Ness Monster. In a newspaper cutting from the time, held in the museum's archive, he is quoted as saying, "I put the project up to the Natural History Museum. The museum does send out expeditions to collect specimens, but they didn't like the idea of a Loch Ness expedition at all. They refused me leave to lecture on the subject. Since I was sacked, they have banned me from the library. I had an international reputation as a zoologist. Now I'm like a struck-off lawyer." According to Tucker, the scientific community wanted to keep the existence of Nessie a secret. They followed a policy of intimidation against those who, like him, voiced this truth. Tucker believed he had been chosen as a figure that needed to be discredited for this purpose. In other words, they undermined him by questioning his sanity or by dismissing him. He later embarked on an unsuccessful legal battle against the museum to be reinstated, which included launching a legal case against the leader of the trustees, then Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Fisher. In the face of ridicule from leading scientists, Dr. Tucker even claimed to have seen the monster. On March 22, 1959, he reported seeing a large hump formation on the lake between Inchna-Cardock and Glendo. He said he likened it to an Elasmosaurus, a long-necked plesiosaur. Dr. Tucker died in France in 2009, unrepentant in his belief in its existence. In 1960, aviation engineer Tim Dinsdale filmed a dark shape moving across Loch Ness. Dinsdale believed the image showed the hump of a creature swimming in the lake, and for a time, the footage was considered one of the strongest pieces of evidence for Nessie's existence. The film was even analyzed by the British Royal Air Force, who concluded that the object was not a boat and was probably a living creature. However, more advanced image analysis in later years suggested that the object captured by Dinsdale might have been mistaken for a boat due to lighting condition. As a result, the footage was no longer seen as definitive proof. Still, Dinsdale, who witnessed the creature with his own eyes, remained convinced it was an unknown animal. In 1962, a group of researchers and enthusiasts formed an organization called the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau, LNPIB, to study the legend with a scientific approach. Over the years, this team set up summer camps along the lake's edge and conducted surveillance using telescopic cameras. In 1967 to 68, LNPIB carried out the first sonar scanning experiments. D. Gordon Tucker, an electronics engineer from the University of Birmingham, installed a prototype sonar device in Loch Ness to scan the underwater environment. In August 1968, during a 2-week survey, the sonar detected multiple large targets moving within the lake at speeds of up to 10 knots, approximately 18 kilometers per hour. 1970s sonar scans and mysterious photographs. As technology advanced in the 1970s, more ambitious investigations were launched to explore the depths of Loch Ness. In 1972, a team led by Dr. Robert Rines from the US-based Academy of Applied Science scanned the lake using advanced sonar and underwater camera system. In August 1972, Rines' 200 kHz sonar device detected a large moving object at a depth of 11 meters, estimated to be approximately 6 to 9 meters in length. The team had set up the underwater camera system to automatically take photographs when a sonar signal was received. Using this method, they captured 2 images believed to show objects swimming beneath the surface. The photographs showed large, fin-like shapes against a dark background, resembling a diamond-shaped flipper. The images caused such a stir that renowned British naturalist Sir Peter Scott proposed giving the creature an official scientific name. In a commentary published in Nature in 1975, Scott and Rines suggested the name Nessiterus rhombopteryx, Greek for Nessie of the diamond-shaped fin. The intent behind the naming was to meet the requirements of new conservation laws in the UK, which required a species to have a formal scientific name to be legally protected. Although the 1972 Flipper photos initially generated major excitement, it was later revealed that the original images had been heavily enhanced during processing. Team member Charles Wyckoff admitted that the photos were manually retouched before publication to make the shapes more visible, and that the forms were not as distinct in the original negatives. Another major scientific debate in the 1970s focused on whether Loch Ness's ecosystem could actually sustain such a creature. In 1972, limnologists R. Sheldon and S. Kerr published a theoretical study calculating the lake's annual biological productivity. Based on biomass data, they proposed that Loch Ness could potentially support around 10 to 20 large creatures, each weighing roughly 1,500 kilograms, and that the available fish population could sustain a small number of predators of this size. However, the following year, another scientist, C.H. Mortimer, challenged this hypothesis, noting that no physical evidence, such as a carcass or bones, had ever been found, and that sightings remained rare, despite heavy boat traffic on the lake. In response, Sheldon and Kerr stated that their study at least demonstrated that in oligotrophic, nutrient-poor lakes, food chains could, in principle, support large masses of living tissue. But if the lake's ecosystem isn't sufficient to feed a monster, could it be sourcing food from elsewhere? Could Nessie be accessing other waters through hidden passages beneath the lake? Loch Ness is connected via the River Ness to the Moray Firth, and from there to the North Sea. Some believe this connection could mean Nessie entered the loch from the sea, or still travels in and out regularly. To date, there is no definitive evidence of hidden tunnels or a direct connection to the sea. However, the geological structure of Loch Ness and the region's history of tectonic activity do not entirely rule out the possibility of such tunnels. In 2016, a newly discovered trench in the lake, 889 feet deep, was proposed as a possible reason for Nessie's continued elusiveness. According to this theory, a vast network of caves or tunnels may offer Nessie a natural hiding place, rendering it undetectable by sonar or camera. Diver expeditions and sonar scans have shown cave-like formations at the bottom of certain parts of the loch. In particular, depressions and cavities have been observed in areas like Urquhart Bay. It is still unconfirmed whether these voids are part of unknown underwater tunnels, but some suggest that Nessie may be hiding in these locations. The strongest support for this theory came from Dr. Rines himself. In 2001, he claimed to have discovered seashells and fungus-like organisms that are not typically found in freshwater environments at the bottom of the loch, suggesting, he said, possible evidence that Nessie might travel between the sea and the lake. 1980, large-scale sonar searches. By the 1980s, scientific curiosity around Nessie was accompanied by a booming tourism interest, leading to more large-scale expeditions. In 1987, the most extensive sonar survey to date was launched under the name Operation Deepscan. A total of 24 boats spread across the widest parts of Loch Ness simultaneously transmitted sonar signals to scan the lake. During the operation, sonar operators detected echo signals bouncing off an object of unusual size and intensity in the water column. While some scans revealed stationary debris-like shapes on the lake bed, 3 separate images showed large moving targets. Researchers led by Adrian Shine suggested that the size of these objects exceeded typical fish schools, but could potentially be seals that had entered Loch Ness. Sonar expert Darrell Lawrence, founder of Lawrence Electronics, who participated in Deepscan, examined one of the strong signals recorded at a depth of 180 meters and gave this striking statement to the press. "There's something here we don't understand. It's larger than a fish, possibly some previously unknown species. We don't know." Lawrence's comment revealed that scientists had not completely closed the door on the Nessie phenomenon and were at least open to the possibility of an unidentified large creature. 90s and 2000s, growing skepticism and new techniques. In 1994, Christian Sperling, One of the perpetrators behind the infamous surgeon's photo confessed shortly before his death that the image was a hoax. Thus, the first and most iconic piece of supposed Nessie evidence was officially discredited. During the 1990s, underwater investigations continued with the help of improved sonar and camera technologies, yet no substantial findings were made. In 2001, Dr. Robert Rines filmed a V-shaped ripple wake forming on the calm surface of Loch Ness and claimed to have detected an unusual skeletal object on the lakebed. However, these claims lacked independent verification and were not widely accepted. By 2008, Dr. Rines, then advanced in age, suggested that the creature might have gone extinct, explaining the continued lack of solid evidence. He even speculated that global warming and changing conditions in Loch Ness might have led to Nessie's disappearance, though this remained more of a hypothesis than a supported theory. In 2003, the BBC launched one of the most comprehensive efforts to scientifically resolve the Nessie mystery through a documentary titled Searching for the Loch Ness Monster. Using 600 sonar beams controlled by a computer and a satellite tracking system, the lake was scanned in extreme detail. The technology was so advanced that even a small buoy, just a few centimeters wide, could be detected. The search turned up no large moving objects of interest. When aired, the program's participating scientists openly declared that the search had conclusively proven the non-existence of a giant creature hiding in Loch Ness. This official statement reinforced the dominant skeptical view in the scientific community. After decades of investigations, the total lack of physical evidence, bones, skin, teeth, etc., strongly indicated that no such creature existed. Throughout the 2000s, Nessie investigations were largely carried out by the Loch Ness Project, a team composed of researchers specializing in lake ecology and geology. Led by Adrian Shine, the group conducted experiments to study the lake's natural environment and test monster-related claims. For instance, in 2006, Shine analyzed lakebed sediments to assess fish populations and the structure of the food chain, evaluating whether Loch Ness could support a population of large predators. The data showed that the lake did not produce enough biological mass to sustain multiple giant creatures over time, confirming earlier theoretical work from the 1970s. Shine and his colleagues also examined how wave patterns and optical reflections in the lake could cause illusions during periods of calm weather, what they called Nessie weather. They reported that such conditions could increase the likelihood of visual misperceptions on the lake's surface. These studies aimed to show that observed anomalies could be explained scientifically without invoking a living creature. Another development in the 2000s was geological explanations for the legend. In 2001, Italian geologist Luigi Picardi proposed that an active fault line, the Great Glen Fault Zone, runs directly beneath Loch Ness. He suggested that small earthquakes in the area could produce waves, foam, and gas bubbles on the lake's surface. Picardi pointed out that the earliest known reference to the Loch Ness Monster, dating back to around 565 AD, described a dragon appearing with tremors and noise and disappearing the same way. He argued this could be interpreted as a geological phenomenon. While this theory doesn't account for modern eyewitness reports that describe a long-necked animal, it introduced the idea that some odd water movements might be explained by tectonic activity. Meanwhile, since the 1980s, researchers like Maurice Burton proposed that decomposing tree trunks in Loch Ness, due to their resin-filled structure, might rise vertically in the water and create the illusion of a monster's head emerging and then vanishing. Historical records show that Seiche waves as high as 2 meters were observed in Loch Ness during major earthquakes in the 1700s. Yet, the lack of monster sightings during such events suggests that geology alone cannot fully explain the Nessie phenomenon. Nevertheless, scientists agree that hydrographic and geological effects likely played a role in shaping the legend. 2010s DNA analysis and new findings. In the 2010s, advancements in genetic and environmental DNA, eDNA technology, opened up new possibilities for unraveling the mysteries of Loch Ness. In 2018, an international research team led by the University of Otago in New Zealand conducted a comprehensive eDNA survey of Loch Ness. The team, headed by Professor Neil Gemmell from Otago University, collected 250 water samples from various depths and locations in the lake to gather DNA fragments shed by organisms in the water. The results, published in 2019, clearly debunked one of the most popular versions of the Nessie legend. The DNA survey found no trace of any prehistoric reptile, e.g. plesiosaur, in Loch Ness. Furthermore, the study also detected no DNA from large fish species often suggested as candidates, such as catfish, sturgeon, or Greenland sharks. Even animals like otters or seals, known to occasionally inhabit the lake, left no genetic traces in the samples. However, the analysis did yield one striking result. A very high amount of European eel anguilla DNA was present in the lake water. This finding reminded scientists of an older theory first suggested in the 1930s. Could Nessie actually be a giant eel? Professor Gemmell stated that while the data did not indicate the size of the eels, the sheer quantity of eel DNA detected raises the possibility that exceptionally large individuals might exist in Loch Ness. Referring to diver accounts of eels as thick as a human leg, Gemmell noted that it's not impossible, though extremely rare, for a European eel to reach an extraordinary size, possibly 4 to 5 meters in length. While the team emphasized that further study would be required to confirm this hypothesis, by 2019, the giant eel theory had resurfaced as the most plausible scientific explanation for the Nessie phenomenon. The DNA study also helped eliminate several other long-standing theories about Nessie. For instance, the idea that Loch Ness harbors a dinosaur, such as a plesiosaur, is now entirely dismissed by the scientific community due to a complete lack of fossil or genetic evidence. Likewise, the theory that the creature might be a giant Wells catfish was unsupported by the DNA findings. No such species was detected in the lake. Nonetheless, in 2015, veteran Nessie watcher Steve Feltham, who had observed the lake for 25 years, reignited public interest by suggesting that the monster could be an exceptionally large catfish introduced into the lake in the 19th century for sport fishing. While Feltham's claim was based on personal speculation rather than scientific evidence, it drew public attention. Meanwhile, the Greenland shark hypothesis, a cold water species that can grow up to 20 feet 6 meters, was popularized in 2013 by biologist Jeremy Wade in a television program. Theoretically, such a shark could enter Loch Ness via rivers and live unnoticed near the lakebed due to its slow movements. However, the 2018 eDNA study found no trace of shark DNA, and Loch Ness's limited connection to the sea further weakened the credibility of this idea. As a result, the hypothesis of a large, unidentified animal in Loch Ness became weaker than ever before. Still, Professor Gemmell cautioned against drawing absolute conclusions, stating, "Our data cannot rule out the giant eel hypothesis," and thus refrained from claiming that Loch Ness's mysteries had been fully resolved. 2000s, final searches and enduring curiosity. Chie Kelly is an amateur photographer who came into the spotlight in 2023 with her mysterious water surface images taken at Loch Ness. She became a key figure who reignited public interest in the Nessie legend and sparked major debate. Her images were described as some of the most convincing photographs in the history of Loch Ness. What makes it even more interesting is that Chie Kelly actually took these photos in 2018, but didn't share them with anyone for 5 years. Why? Because she believed people would make fun of her. Even though she was convinced she had witnessed something serious, she hesitated to release the images due to fear of ridicule or being dismissed. Steve Feltham, who has been searching for Nessie for over 30 years and lives by the shore of Loch Ness, took Kelly seriously and encouraged her to release the images. In fact, he was the one who persuaded her. In a 2023 statement, Feltham described the photos as the most compelling evidence of Nessie I've seen in the last 30 years.
I can't instantly explain what it is. I've not seen images from the surface of the water that have been as good as this, taken in the last 30 years.
This statement gave Kelly the courage she needed, and she finally decided to share the photos with the public. While walking along the shore with her family, Chie Kelly noticed a mysterious dark object moving on the water's surface. She quickly took a series of photographs. The images were quite clear and included several different angles. They closely resembled the classic Loch Ness Monster silhouette. But let's be honest, if you really saw Nessie, would you take a photo or record a video? Why did Kelly choose to take photographs instead of filming a video? So what do you think? Do you believe Kelly's photos are real? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. In the 2000s and 20s, interest in the Nessie legend didn't fade. In fact, with advancing technology, new research initiatives were launched. In August 2023, exactly 90 years after the first modern sighting of Nessie in 1933, one of the largest volunteer search events ever was held at Loch Ness. Hundreds of curious volunteers and researchers scanned the lake for 2 days using sonar devices, drones equipped with thermal cameras, and underwater microphones, hydrophones. Although some curious sounds were captured during this modern great hunt, experts identified them as likely coming from common animals like ducks. No significant images or concrete evidence were obtained. In 2020, sonar footage from a tour boat cruising Loch Ness sparked media excitement. Ronald Mackenzie, an experienced boat captain, reported detecting an 8-meter-long sonar contact in open water at a depth of 200 meters. This 100% real and unusual signal was interpreted by the sonar manufacturer as potentially belonging to a large, single living creature. Marine sonar expert Craig Wallace, who analyzed the event, stated that the object didn't resemble a large school of fish or a known geological feature, calling it highly intriguing and unexplained, and recommended renewed exploration using more advanced sonar systems. Steve Feltham, a dedicated Nessie watcher who has spent decades by the shores of Loch Ness, described the sonar footage as perhaps the most convincing evidence in the history of the legend. Feltham suggested that the recorded object might be a large Wells catfish, possibly one of the last surviving giants in the lake. Steve Feltham left his home and job in Dorset in 1991 and moved to the shores of Loch Ness in the Highlands of Scotland. Since then, he has been searching for Nessie full-time. He lives in an old converted mobile library, a decision rooted in his childhood fascination with the Loch Ness Monster after a family trip to the area. What began as curiosity eventually turned into a lifelong obsession. At the age of 28, in 1991, he quit his job, sold his house, broke up with his partner, converted a mobile library into a caravan, and moved to the edge of Loch Ness. Since that day, he has spent over 30 years living by the lake and observing it. He spends his days watching the water through binoculars, cameras, and audio equipment. He documents anything unusual he sees and shares his findings through social media and the press. He also crafts and sells small Nessie-themed figurines to tourists. This allows him to continue his search while living independently. He has been featured multiple times by major outlets like BBC, National Geographic, and Discovery Channel. Steve Feltham has even made it into the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest continuous Loch Ness Monster hunter. According to him, in his very first year, he witnessed something in the loch moving at the speed of a jet ski, but he was unable to capture it on film. Since that moment, Steve has spent over 3 decades hoping to witness and record a second encounter.
I was fortunate in the first year. I suddenly spotted this streak of water, almost like a jet ski, but without the jet ski. A spray of water coming off of something, which travelled like half the length of a football pitch in less than 10 seconds, just really fast, like a torpedo. And as it hit each oncoming wave, that would be the big splash of water. So it just went boff, 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 boff against my vision. And I just froze. I just look at that. And as soon as it finished, reality came flooding in, and I thought, damn it, that's my job. I should have photographed that. Okay, this is year one. This is halfway through year one. I've had this sighting. Next time I'll be ready. Next time the camera will be there and I'll get that picture. And it gave me the false belief that it wouldn't be long before the next sighting was just around the corner. And here we are 3 decades later, and I'm still waiting for that second sighting. So it turns out it's not as easy as I thought.
So, does Steve still believe in Nessie? At first, he believed there could be an unknown species in the lake. He was especially interested in the idea of a plesiosaur-like creature. But in 2015, he publicly announced a change in his views. He said, "I think Nessie is most likely a giant catfish." Steve doesn't deny the legend of Nessie, but he argues that the origin of this legend is more likely to be natural phenomena, human activity, or optical illusions. In his words, there is something unknown out there, but it doesn't have to be supernatural. In 2025, Steve continues to observe and photograph the loch, but his content now leans more towards skepticism. For example, he asks questions like, were the figures in Chie Kelly's photos actually divers? Today, Steve speaks to both skeptics and believers. In recent years, he has been more focused on evidence-based inquiry rather than myth. So, what do you think about Steve and his recent statement? Whether Nessie is real or not, I believe Feltham's search for her is more than just a quest to find a monster. It is a personal journey and an expression of what it means to follow one's passion. He himself has said that this journey has brought him freedom, adventure, and inner peace. He left his home, his job, and his life behind to settle in a caravan on the shores of Loch Ness. For over 30 years, he had one mission: to find Nessie. He chased a legend, but over time, he realized that legends are not always shaped by truth. Sometimes they're shaped by hope. Today, he still lives by the lake. He earns a living by making and selling small Nessie figurines. But he no longer believes in the monster, at least not in the way it's often described. And maybe that's exactly why people believe him the most. Because even though his livelihood depends on it, he chooses not to sell belief, but to speak only of what he has seen. Still, the fact that he hasn't encountered anything in over 30 years doesn't mean Nessie doesn't exist. Thousands of eyewitness reports and decades of investigation suggest that the Loch Ness Monster will always remain an unsolved mystery. So, what do you think about Nessie? Is it just a myth or something real?
I'm still impressed with maybe a tenth of the stories I hear. I think that really warrants investigation. That sounds plausibly like something big and unexplained. As time has gone on, a realization has come along that I'm now no longer looking for long-necked dinosaurs. I don't think there's plesiosaurs in here. I'd love there to be, but no matter how hard I wish there to be plesiosaurs in here, it won't make plesiosaurs appear in here. They're not in here.
Scottish-born actress Karen Gillan has expressed her belief in Nessie several times. In fact, in a 2010 interview about her character, Amy Pond, in Doctor Who, Gillan said she once suggested to the show's writer, Stephen Moffat, that they should create an episode about the Loch Ness Monster. Whether Karen Gillan genuinely believes in the Loch Ness Monster or was simply making a humorous nod to the folklore of her hometown remains unclear.
Well, I live in London now, but I was there recently and it was really good.
Was it fun?
Nice. It was. I went to Loch Ness.
Did you see the...
Yes, again, yes.
In fact, in 2015, Gillan's voice was used for Loch Ness boat tours. Tourists visiting the loch listened to Nessie stories narrated by her. Additionally, the Inverness-born actress once shared how she missed the auditions for the 1996 film Loch Ness when Hollywood casting agents came to her hometown of Inverness in search of a red-haired 7-year-old girl for the role. Gillan reportedly withdrew from the audition. Apart from Karen Gillan, many other celebrities have publicly shared their belief in or experiences with the Loch Ness Monster in modern media. Now, we're going to show you other famous figures who believe in Nessie. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future videos in the series. You'll also find links to previous episodes pinned in the top comment. 1962, David James. A British Member of Parliament who had sailed around the world in 1937, David James was a firm believer in the Loch Ness Monster. He co-founded the Loch Ness Phenomenon Bureau of Investigation with naturalist Peter Scott in 1962. July 1975, Nicholas Fairbairn, UK Conservative MP. Nicholas Fairbairn took action to protect the Loch Ness Monster. He opposed capturing Nessie and displaying it in a museum, arguing instead that the legendary creature should be respected as part of Scottish cultural heritage. This early political endorsement is a notable example of lawmakers who believed in Nessie. 1976, Alex Harvey, a famous Scottish rock and blues musician whose career spanned 3 decades. His band, SHB, the sensational Alex Harvey Band, gained popularity across Europe. In 1976, Harvey came to Loch Ness in search of the monster. Though he didn't find Nessie, he recorded an album titled Alex Harvey Presents the Loch Ness Monster. Prince Philip. Even members of the royal family, such as Prince Philip, were known to have an interest in Nessie. Archived documents reveal that the late Prince Philip, husband of Queen Elizabeth II, corresponded with Loch Ness researchers during the 1960s and 1970s and showed interest in Nessie hunting expeditions. According to some records, Prince Philip even suggested that the Royal Navy conduct a systematic search in Loch Ness. While there was no official public statement declaring his belief, this interest from such a high-ranking figure highlights the seriousness with which some viewed the phenomenon. June 2013, Charlie Sheen. Hollywood actor Charlie Sheen has openly stated his belief that Nessie is real. In July 2013, he traveled to Scotland in search of the legendary creature. Arriving via private jet with 2 friends, Sheen rented a castle near Loch Ness and hired a boat for a nighttime Nessie hunt. His expedition drew significant public interest. In a 2014 appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Sheen explained that bad weather had delayed their initial plans, but once conditions improved, they set out on the loch, only to find no evidence and depart the following day. Still, Sheen has repeatedly emphasized his belief in the Loch Ness Monster. His adventure stands as a modern example of a Hollywood star expressing genuine interest in the Nessie legend. May 2016, Boris Johnson. During the Brexit campaign in the United Kingdom, former London mayor and prominent politician Boris Johnson made a humorous remark referencing the Nessie legend. In May 2016, during debates surrounding the EU referendum, a journalist asked Johnson whether he believed in the Loch Ness Monster. He jokingly replied that the evidence for Nessie's existence was much stronger than the Treasury's Brexit forecast. While his comment didn't confirm genuine belief, it showed how the legend remains part of political humor. In the same interview, Johnson quipped, "If people think the moon landing was fake, why can't Nessie be real?" Later, in 2019, after becoming Prime Minister, Johnson spoke about Nessie in a more personal tone. Following claims from New Zealand scientists suggesting Nessie might actually be a giant eel based on DNA samples taken from the loch, Johnson shared his childhood fascination with the creature. He told reporters, "As a child, I really wanted the Loch Ness Monster to be real, and part of me still does." This statement revealed that, even as a grown statesman, Johnson maintained a heartfelt affection for the legend. 2023, Derren Brown. Illusionist Derren Brown surprised many of his fans by stating that he believes in the Loch Ness Monster.
I know it's not your area of expertise, but Dominic believes in the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, okay. No, that is real.
Oh,
Darren,
no,
thank you.
Live off this for 10 years.
There is no
now.
proof that it doesn't exist. That's my argument.
I don't know if that's an argument for anything.
Well, it is when it comes to... No.
2023, Ewan McGregor. In August 2023, the largest Nessie hunt in the past 50 years was conducted at Loch Ness, involving scientists and volunteers alike. During this event, several celebrities took to social media to express their affection for Nessie. Scottish actor Ewan McGregor humorously tweeted, "Come on Nessie, stop hiding, and let's finally take that selfie."
Could try to see the Northern Lights. But they've got a better chance of seeing the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay.
Right, that's it, look.
Forwards. Go the other way, that's it.
Now you sit down.
Oh, Colin, we're signed on to the waves! Oh.
To learn more about the outcomes of this large-scale search, don't forget to check out my other video titled Loch Ness Monster Hunt 2025,
Did they finally catch Nessie? Billy Connoly. Some musicians and comedians have also made playful references to Nessie during performances or interviews. For instance, Scottish comedian and musician Billy Connoly has frequently mentioned Scottish legends in his shows, and jokingly claimed that Nessie is real. Although he lived in the United States, Billy owned a mansion in Strathton, Scotland, where he often hosted fellow actors. Trips to Loch Ness were a regular activity, and one such visit in 2001, featuring Judi Dench, Robin Williams, and Steve Martin, caught the attention of both the media and local press. During that visit, Robin Williams spent time with Steve Feltham, the world-famous monster hunter who has been living by the loch in a converted mobile library for over 20 years. So, why do most of the celebrities who believe in Nessie happen to be Scottish? Is it because they grew up with this legend and feel a deep cultural respect for it? Or maybe, living close to Loch Ness, they've heard more eyewitness stories than the rest of us ever could? I don't know. What I do know is, we're not here to blindly believe or to reject everything. We're here to stay curious, to stay objective, not to say it's real, not to say it's fake, but to keep asking, what if? Could Nessie actually have been captured by the government and secretly held in a facility somewhere? Did you know that under Prince Philip's direction, the royal family sent hunters to Loch Ness and even issued orders to transport the creature's body to London? Yes, this is not an urban legend. Documents and claims over the years suggest that the Loch Ness Monster may already have been found, and that this information has been hidden from the public. According to some sources, this event even triggered disagreements at the highest levels of UK institutions. Did the creature's remains spark a secret rivalry between the Natural History Museum in London and the Royal Scottish Museum? This is just the beginning. What you are about to hear will show that Nessie might be much more than just a monster. Some believe it came from outer space. Others claim it arrived through a dimensional portal. So, what is Nessie really? Could its lair be hidden in a cave within the lake? If you're ready, let's dive into the most shocking, sensational, and least known theories about Nessie. Was the government really hiding Nessie? Some theories argue that the Loch Ness Monster was actually captured years ago and hidden from the public out of panic or self-interest. Following the record 11 sightings reported in 2017, one claim suggests Nessie was indeed found, but quickly taken to a classified government facility. It is even stated that the government enacted special protection laws to ensure the creature's safety, all without public knowledge. This conspiracy theory first surfaced in a Daily Express report citing the YouTube channel All Time Conspiracy. It states that government authorities secretly held the creature's remains and that the decision of where to display them became a major point of contention between the Natural History Museum in London and the Royal Scottish Museum. According to the allegation, secret negotiations even took place to determine this, all concealed from the general public. Could this really be true? When Nessie exploded into public consciousness in the early 1930s, a secret rivalry emerged between British and Scottish institutions. In 1934, officials from the Natural History Museum in London reportedly sent correspondence instructing hunters to shoot the creature and send its body to London. In response, the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh contacted the government, insisting that if the creature's body was found, it should not end up in England, and that the remains should be considered their property. So even before Nessie was visible, these two museums were in a cold war over who would exhibit the creature. These archival documents were later uncovered by researcher David Clarke and became public in 2014. In my video, these celebrities confirmed the Loch Ness Monster is real in 2025. I mentioned several famous believers, and Prince Philip was certainly among them. The Duke of Edinburgh's fascination with Nessie was well known among military and political circles. In the 1960s, he reportedly expressed interest and even urged a naval officer to mobilize the Royal Navy to search for Nessie. Archival letters show that in the 1960s and 70s, Prince Philip communicated with Loch Ness researchers and showed keen interest in Nessie expeditions. Some documents even state that he suggested a systematic Royal Navy search in Loch Ness. But what if Nessie was actually caught? What if it's not just a monster? What if Nessie's existence is a secret so profound that it would overturn our entire scientific understanding? What if this is why it's being hidden? Because revealing it could mean rewriting history books. Perhaps that's why the government has remained silent. Perhaps certain secrets are being withheld, not from the public, but from science itself. What do you think? Could Nessie really have been found and taken to a secret facility? But wait, the most intriguing theories about Nessie don't end there. In the next episode, we'll take you deeper into the heart of the mystery. Could Nessie have been brought from outer space? One of the wildest theories about Nessie suggests that it is not an earthly creature at all, but rather an alien life form, or the result of an extraterrestrial experiment. According to believers, Nessie is not a plesiosaur, but a being that was brought to our planet from elsewhere. Some claim that aliens may have used advanced technology to place Nessie in Loch Ness many years ago, perhaps as a biological surveillance device to observe humanity, or merely as part of an experiment. Occasional reports of UFO sightings around Loch Ness, such as a Swedish journalist claim in the 1970s that he saw a landed spaceship and alien beings in the forest, are often cited in support of this theory. This conspiracy has even found its way into popular culture, where the idea of Nessie being a visitor from another world is frequently discussed. Personally, I find this theory far from convincing, but what do you think? Is Nessie a time traveler from another dimension? This extraordinary theory suggests that the Loch Ness Monster has made its way to the present day by traveling through time. According to this view, there may be a natural time gate or wormhole located deep within Loch Ness or nearby. Nessie is believed to be a prehistoric creature, perhaps a plesiosaur from the Jurassic era, that occasionally emerges into our world through this passage, only to return to its own time afterward. This could explain why we never capture it definitively or find evidence of a breeding population. Theorists argue that Loch Ness's geographic and magnetic characteristics may create anomalies that weaken the boundaries of space and time. Unusual magnetic deviations and strange sonar readings in the area are cited as possible evidence of temporary time windows. While this theory is highly speculative, it attempts to explain the Nessie phenomenon through the lens of quantum physics and time travel. Some even claim Nessie leaves no trace because it doesn't fully exist in our timeline. Could Nessie be a paranormal entity? Some believe Nessie is not a flesh and blood animal at all, but a paranormal being, or a creature that comes from another dimension. According to this theory, the monster's ability to appear and vanish without a trace is attributed to its non-physical or spiritual nature. Notably, Nessie researcher Tim Dinsdale, who claimed to have filmed the creature, once suggested around 1970 that Nessie might be a ghost, not a living animal, following a bizarre event aboard his boat involving a series of ghostly and demonic entities. Another researcher, F.W. Ted Holliday, concluded after years of investigation that Nessie was a being that enters and exits our world from another realm. In fact, in 1973, Holliday conducted a kind of exorcism over Loch Ness with a priest, attempting to banish the creature. This theory connects Nessie to local legends of water spirits, such as the Kelpie, or even demonic forces. According to believers, Nessie is not a physical animal, but a type of energy, being that manifests occasionally. In recent years, many modern authors have written books exploring Nessie's supernatural origins. By incorporating ideas from other dimensions and occult folklore, this theory offers a completely different perspective on the mystery of Loch Ness. Could Nessie be a Kelpie? A Kelpie, or Each Uige, in Scottish Gaelic, is a shape-shifting water spirit or water horse from Scottish folklore. It is often said to appear in the form of a horse and is accused of luring people into the water to drown them. Even before the Loch Ness legend emerged, there were historical accounts of Kelpies roaming the waterways of the region. This has led some to believe that the Nessie story is essentially a modern evolution of the ancient Kelpie legend passed down through generations. Supporters of this theory interpret certain modern sightings of Nessie as possible Kelpie encounters. For example, a curved, hump-like shape seen on the water's surface has sometimes been attributed to a Kelpie rather than Nessie. The hidden tunnel beneath the loch. Why has Nessie never been definitively caught? Why are there long periods with no sightings at all? If the loch's ecosystem isn't enough to sustain a creature of that size, could it be accessing food from somewhere else? Scientifically speaking, plesiosaurs went extinct around 65 million years ago alongside the dinosaurs. To date, no transitional fossils or evidence suggest that they survived unnoticed. The likelihood of such a large species existing for millions of years without leaving a trace is extremely low. Loch Ness was formed roughly 10,000 years ago during the last ice age, at least 64 million years after the extinction of plesiosaurs. This fact alone makes it unlikely that plesiosaurs could have naturally existed in the loch. However, one theory suggests that Loch Ness is connected to the sea through underwater waterways, which could allow a sea creature, such as a plesiosaur, to move in and out of the loch. According to this theory, Nessie's sporadic appearances or long absences may be due to its ability to travel through these hidden underwater tunnels, allowing it to go undetected. Loch Ness connects to the Moray Firth via the River Ness and then to the North Sea. This connection, some believe, could mean that Nessie entered the loch from the sea and may still be coming and going regularly. So far, there is no definitive evidence of an underground tunnel or direct sea connection. However, the geological structure of Loch Ness and past tectonic activity in the region do not rule out the possibility of such tunnels existing. Could Nessie be hiding in a giant underwater cave system? A newly discovered trench in 2016, measuring 889 feet in depth, may help explain why Nessie hasn't been seen more frequently. According to this theory, a vast cave or tunnel system beneath the loch provides a natural hiding place for Nessie, making it nearly impossible to detect with sonar or cameras. Diving expeditions and sonar surveys have shown cave-like formations on the loch floor in certain areas, particularly in locations like Urquhart Bay. Depressions and voids have been detected in the lake bed. Whether these gaps are unknown underwater tunnels remains unconfirmed, but it is speculated that Nessie may be hiding in these areas. As with every great mystery, despite thousands of eyewitness accounts, we may never be 100% certain about Nessie's existence. Strangely enough, it brings to mind a quote by physicist Werner Heisenberg regarding the existence of God. The first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. Maybe what we know about Loch Ness is only a glass of water. Some have taken a sip and declared, Nessie doesn't exist. But what if the truth is waiting in the last sip? What if Nessie is still hiding in the depths of the loch? Nessie continues to live not only beneath the surface, but also in the darker corners of our minds, especially when you decide to take a swim in that lake, in that eerie silence. Remember, we can never truly know what lies beneath. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out the previous episodes in this series. Please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications.